So the NFL draft is done, and it looked very different this year. But so will college recruiting and eligibility if the heads of the NCAA get their way, depending on how they vote, on the 5-for-5 deal. We'll talk about that next on the ProZone. Welcome to the ProZone. I'm Matt Roberts. So the NFL draft is over. And I noticed something significantly different about the draft this year. Past drafts were very exciting. This draft wasn't that exciting. It's exciting for individual players and maybe their immediate fans, but the luster of the draft, that amateurism, that Cinderella story, the young kid who gets the opportunity to make millions of dollars and become a hero, become a star, brought onto a team, he's going to change a team, he's going to be part of their culture, that's gone. For the most part, that's gone. And why? Got to ask yourself why. And it was only a few years ago where we were excited about the draft. Just a few years ago. I remember I used to have a big whiteboard up and then look at my team. I'm an Eagles fan, right? So I look at my team, the depth chart, and who should they get at this position, and we'd mark it up and we'd figure it all out, and you opine, and then there's mock drafts and all this excitement of who's going to go where, and which kid's going to be that surprise kid that comes in and changes everything. And it's really cool. You have somebody who's going from being a college student, an amateur, to making millions of dollars overnight. Right? All of a sudden, multi-million-dollar contract, going to be able to buy a house for his mother. If he's married, changes his life. It's a totally different world for the athlete. I've been on the end of that. I had one of my players years ago. I actually got to witness him getting drafted. Okay, he got drafted 132nd overall in the 4th round by the Green Bay Packers. And I was there to witness the actual moment he got drafted. And you see, at that moment, everything changed because that quickly, phone interviews, it's a whirlwind, and his whole perspective changes, and his whole life changes. And now you're going into the NFL, and you never made that money before, and now you're making it. But now you have athletes in college who are making more than some NFL players are making who have been in the NFL for years. So where's the excitement? Okay, you got a kid who's making $4 million in no money, and he gets drafted in the 1st round, and he's making, $20, $30 million. That's a big change, but he's still making 4. He already made 4. So it's not like I went from making nothing to being a multimillionaire. I went from being a college student to being a pro. I'm a semi-pro in college right now. And I'm just going to go and make a little bit more money. And if I don't get drafted in the first few rounds, what's the point? Let's be honest. Your big paydays in the NFL come from the first 3 rounds, okay? 1st round, massive payday. 2nd round, strong payday. 3rd round, a payday. Not as big of a payday, but a pretty damn good, healthy chunk of change. But after you leave the 3rd round, the 4th through 7th rounds, you're not making a whole hell of a lot of money. I think the athlete I was watching get drafted, I think he made like a $300,000 signing bonus, and I think it was like $600,000 over 4 years or something like that. But it wasn't an incredible amount of money. So 4th round players don't make that much. So, and especially now when you compare it to no money, and the no money is out of control. We're going to circle back to that. But where we are right now is you have players who have to wonder, is it worth my actually leaving college to enter the NFL draft? Now, there's 2 approaches, 2 schools of thought on this, okay? The first one is the Philadelphia Eagles general manager, Howie Roseman. He's a wizard. He's just a phenomenal general manager. How he pulls off some of the stuff he pulls off, I have absolutely no idea. But he's able to fleece people for a lot of talent, frees up a lot of cap money, and He just makes things work, right? Well, he made this comment about scouting in the press conference for an NBC Sports Philadelphia on the scouting in the nil era. Let's take a listen.
I would say the biggest issue is that for the first time in really the history of the National Football League, you are taking players who are taking pay cuts. And so the character of those players, their passion and love of the game comes to the forefront even more.
That's it. He said, you have players who are taking pay cuts, so the passion comes to the forefront. And he said, how is nil affecting scouting in the NFL? Well, are they? They're only taking pay cuts if they're going to the lower rounds. So yeah, their passion has to mean something, right? The passion has to matter. But if they're going rounds 1 through 3, they're not taking pay cuts. Your nil guys aren't making as much money as a first or second rounder. In most cases, a third rounder. So they're not always taking pay cuts. He's talking later rounds. So he's trying to smooth. What he's trying to do is he's trying to make it seem like it's not so bad. All right, what he's trying to say is the diplomatic way of saying, how are the players, how is nil affecting scouting? Nil is affecting scouting. It is. So he tries to smooth it over by saying, well, they're taking pay cuts, so it's their passion. Yeah, but on the contrary to that, let's find this gentleman here. This guy here, Andrew Brandt, sports law professor for Villanova Law and no consultant. He was on a podcast and he said this.
I talked to an NFL scout last week and I think he told me the same thing last year, but last year it was like rounds 6 and 7. Now it's rounds 4 through 7. What do I mean? Last year, rounds 6 through 7 wiped out from NIL. This year, rounds 4 through 7 wiped out from NIL. So as you watch the draft or hear about the draft on Saturday, rounds 4 through 7, know that NFL scouts are looking at a crop of players that is weakened significantly by NIL. In other words, a lot of the players that would be 4th to 7th round picks have chosen to stay in school rather than go to the draft. A lot.
There you go. A lot of players, and this is from NFL Scout, right, to this gentleman, have chosen to stay in school instead of going into the draft. Now, that plays back into what Howie Roseman said, whether you'll see what their passion is all about. Translation, they're actually willing to play in the NFL. But you have to understand that some of those college students going 4th or 7th round have run out of eligibility. So of course they're going to have a passion to go in the NFL now. They're not in college anymore, getting paid to play. If they have eligibility, they're staying. So what's the point? Like the NFL draft is getting killed. I mean, look at let me go back a bit. Back in the day, and not too long ago, the NFL draft used to be on a Saturday morning. You'd get up early Saturday morning, bright and early, and you'd watch the first, I believe it was the first, second, and third round of the draft, okay? And then Sunday was 4 through 7. And it was an exciting day. Like, it's early in the morning and everyone was up and you're ready to go and you're fired up and you're all locked in and who's your pick? And these people come up and ask me questions like, who do you think is going to get drafted? Where do you think they're going to go? Because I tracked it really tightly back then, especially because it's my business, right? Well, that changed and they said, hey, we can make money off this as a primetime thing. So let's move it because it all comes down to freaking money. You're going to screw up everything you do for the sake of money. Okay, so we're going to say, hey, let's make it a primetime thing. I think it's Thursday night. We're going to do the first round of the draft. And then the next round's the next night. And then the weekend is going to be 4 through 7, right? And it put a lot of attention on the first round, maybe the first 2 rounds. And then the luster wore off because we're not going to want to watch, most of us, your average Joe, your normies, so to speak, are not going to want to watch 4 hours of a draft or 2 days of a draft or 4 days of a draft, like a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You're not going to want to do that. And you don't care as much, but you still do care because those 4 through 7s are going to have their lives changed by going to the NFL after being just a college student getting tuition. Right? Well, now no one cared about 4th through 7th round. Nobody cared. I mean, literally, I'll be honest with you, literally, I forgot that the NFL draft was Thursday. I did. I'm busy with my work. I was working on other projects, and I went, oh, God. I saw the pick was in on X. I went, whoops, there's the draft tonight. I literally forgot. That's how little it matters. Because if I'm forgetting, and this is what I do, then other people are not going to care. And the reason is because you're not seeing that person whose life is now being changed exponentially. The fairy tale story has been wiped out through greed. Oh, they deserve to be played, Matt. Why are you saying? I said, I agree in payment, but not how it's done. I've said this before, and I stand firm on this. Name, image, and likeness used to be, right? Well, first off, they were getting paid anyway. You were getting scholarships, okay? You were getting scholarships to college. You were getting paid. A scholarship, $30,000 to $50,000 a year, if not more. So you were getting paid. Don't say you weren't getting paid. You were getting paid. But then it became, well, I just need a little bit extra money so we can kick it at the clubs, or I can buy myself something nice. And they try to play the game. Well, the students are starving to death. No, they're not. They have meal plans. They're not starving to death. So give me a break on that crap. If you're on a team, you're getting fed. Okay? But California passes the law. I'm going to repeat this over and over for anybody who's new and watching. California passed the law. The first one to pass nil legislation saying that players can use their name, image, and likeness to sell products. Translation, Nike, Gatorade, other companies, Athleto, whatever it is, they can grab an athlete and say, hey, I'd like to use your image to market our product. And they make some money on it. The problem you have is, and I said this back in episode 1 of the ProZone, I believe, you have a problem, which is you're a college student. No one really knows who you are unless maybe it's a local audience, right? Your local market. So if you're a Georgia student and you're a Georgia fans will know who you are, but other people around the country don't give a crap who you are. And they're not going to listen to some college kid who just came in there, these young 18, 19-year-old. They don't know a damn thing. So why am I going to trust them? In some cases you might, depending on how great they are, but in most cases you're not. It's because it doesn't make a big difference to them, right? You're just another person. Now, couple that with transfer portal. You're moving from school to school to school every year or two, okay? Sometimes every year. Some guys change, 6 schools in 6 years? How are you going to develop a freaking fan base in 6 years to market a product through name, image, and likeness for a product? If it's Coca-Cola, how am I going to market Coca-Cola with my image when nobody knows who the freak I am, especially in my team market? I was in Florida. There's a Florida market there. Whoops, I just moved to Alabama. There's an Alabama market there. Whoops, and it keeps changing. Okay? So no one's going to care who you are. And they're not going to care about the product. But it doesn't matter because once name, image, and likeness came into play, and I think 31 or some odd states were on board with it, and more are now, it became corrupted by the boosters and the friends of the programs who created the nil collectives, and they started paying athletes to play. That quickly, it stopped being about marketing a product. It became about making money from donors to put toward these athletes. Now I'm going to do a whole nother piece, another show coming up on how the money's running out. We're going to touch on it a little bit here, but the money is running out in college recruiting. Okay. I'm a multimillionaire. Let's say I am. Far from it. I'm a multimillionaire. I'm donating millions of dollars to my alma mater, to, Nebraska. Here's some odd millions of dollars to Nebraska. And I want them to put it toward this specific player that I want to have come on the team. They pay this athlete $2 million. That athlete comes on the team, and then in a year, they leave. They took my money and ran. Where's my return on investment? Where is the success of my program? Where is the growth of Nebraska football? Where's the growth of the player? Where's my benefit from it? None. Return on investment, ROI. That is what you need to understand when it comes to giving money to schools. Okay? The same goes with recruiting. I do recruiting, and the ROI for recruiting for my business is massive because it's like the two packages, $225 and $455. For two packages at 50 schools each, one's for 3 months, one's for 6 months. And I work my ass off, okay? We make sure the kids get exposure. You're spending a very little amount of money to get a massive return on investment. You're not paying millions of dollars. You're paying a couple $100. That's a good return on investment, ROI. But if you're a donor to a school, to a no collective, or to a sports program, and then you pay for a player, and then they leave right away after a year, you're not getting your return. And guess what? These millionaires are millionaires for a reason. They don't like to spend money. As a rule, they just don't. They have extra money they spend. If they can donate it, they can write it off on their taxes. But they can't keep writing it off on their taxes forever because they don't have endless resources. So they keep tapping that well too often. And now they're starting to dry up. And like, what am I investing for? What's the point of me donating money if the players are going to split anyway? We're not building a dynasty here. We're building a single 1 year plan. That's not good. So here we are. You have players who are making millions of dollars. And they're not all, but a lot, and especially your bigger ones. But the ones who are making a couple $100,000, 200 grand, 100 grand, whatever it is, they're not going to go in the NFL draft and take a pay cut, especially if you're making $1 million and you're going to end up making 600,000, 400,000. Why would you bother? So when Harry Roseman says it's their passion, yeah, well, it's their passion if they're willing to give up that and they saw the eligibility. But if they have eligibility left, they're going to stay. And that's just how it is. That's how it is. And the loyalty factor is screwed in the NFL draft. It's screwed up because now if I'm a coach and I see a player who was changing teams every year, where's his loyalty? Is he going to want to stay with my program, or is he going to want to run off and do whatever? He's going to leave every year. I could sign him to a multi-year deal, but he's going to, give me a problem and demand a trade and sick his lawyers on me because the lawyers, they've been salivating over this. They love it. I've said this before. There's so many lawyers. If you read X, okay, I get all these lawyers in my feed. Oh my God, everything's about how it's going to become a lawsuit. They're going to sue. Someone's going to sue. The NCAA is going to have to answer to this. Because they didn't give a good shit about high school players or college players until they learned they can make money off of them. When you were just a college player and you were just getting scholarship money and you had no additional income, lawyers didn't care. But the minute you started to sue and the minute you started to make money and they realized, I can make money off of the NCAA in a settlement because there's a thing called pro se. So if you're going pro se means that they're going to do the work for you but get paid on the back end. So it's free work up front with a return on the back end. And usually they're going to take about 40% of what you make in a settlement. Okay. So in some cases, they might be a nil agent as well. Hey, look, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll work you out a deal. We'll sue, get you at eligibility, get you another year, and I'll represent you as your nil agent. Then I'll take a percentage, 20 to 30% of what you make on your nil. And that's how they get paid. But the lawyers did not give a damn about college players or high school players until they learned they can make money off of them. And they are feasting at the trough, dude. If you're a college student and a lawyer's conning you into another lawsuit, turn the other way, bro. Because all they want is to line their own pockets. They're not doing it for the greater good. They want to make money. That's what lawyers do. It's that simple. It's ridiculous, but they're going to feast on people who don't know what they're doing. You guys don't know. You're naive. Your parents are naive. You don't understand the game. And they can talk all this big lingo and say, I understand this, and I read the contract, and blah, 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 blah. And they post all this stuff up online, but they really don't care in the grand scheme. They just care about how they can corrupt it to make money, which is how we got started with the transfer portal in the first place. and how they keep doing things. Example, again, Pavia. Pavia had played 2 years in JUCO. Those who don't know who Diego Pavia is, right? Played 2 years JUCO. He loses 2 years of eligibility based on NCAA rules. Played 1 more year somewhere else. He had 2 years of eligibility. Well, had 1 more year of eligibility left, and then he sued. So it was like, I think 3 years. 3 years at JUCO, had 1 year of eligibility. That's what it was. 3 years JUCO, 1 year in college. He sued to get an extra year of eligibility, and he got it. Trinidad Chambliss, example. Here's a player, Trinidad Chambliss, who wanted extra year of eligibility. He sued and went to 3 different judges. And this is what they do. They'll present the case, and they'll sue. The judge will get the case and say, no, you're not getting eligibility. You're done. Go to another judge, rework the case, rework the language a bit, present it to the judge. Judge says no. Third judge, same thing, no. Then they're going to keep changing it up until they find a judge that agrees with them. And in this case, they found a judge who was an Ole Miss graduate. And where's Trinidad Chambliss going? Ole Miss. And what did they do? He says, sure, you can have another year of eligibility. That's corruption. That's a conflict of interest. He shouldn't even have been allowed to take the case. But he did, and there you have it. And they gave him another year of eligibility. Pavia, similarly, all he's got to do is find one judge that's going to agree. The judge agrees. Now he's got another year of eligibility. Congratulations. So he plays for 1 more year. And he puts up some bang-up numbers, okay, for 5'9", the whopping 5'9", 5'10" in shoes, okay? But he's also playing for Vanderbilt. And let's be honest, if Pavia's put up those numbers in college, that tells you all you need to know about college athletes. That is why so few players make the transition from college to pro. First off, you have what? 7 rounds? And you got 32 teams per round? So what's that? 224. 224, roughly, players that get drafted, okay? If every team is drafting, it's 32 rounds, so 32 drafts, 224. Of those, the vast majority aren't going to do anything. Your 7th rounders are going to pretty much be a bust, end up maybe practice squad or being cut. Your 6th rounders kind of the same. Your 5th rounders might last a little bit, but not so much. Your 4th rounders and up are the ones that will probably contribute to at some level. But for the most part, most of your players aren't. Oh, what about Tom Brady? No, don't. Tom Brady was an aberration. Once in a while, you're going to get lucky with a great 6th rounder that'll just blow your doors off. But it's an aberration. I'm talking about on the average. 5th, 6th, and 7th round, meh. 6th and 7th, not likely. 7th round, most likely not. 1, 2, 3, 4, those are your big ones. Those are your players, right? And 4s on the fringe, hit or miss. Hell, even some of the 1s are hit or miss. So the transition from college to pro, first off, it's of all the players in college. I mean, think about this. You're going to have, so it's 200 and roughly 224 players that are drafted in the NFL draft. How many players, Division I players, entered the transfer portal last year? 6,000. No, 4,000. 4,000 entered the transfer portal. Division I. How many college players entered the transfer portal last year? Total. 10,000 players of all levels entered the portal. Football. So if you have 4,000 D1 players, and they're the ones that mostly are going to get drafted, because now, forget it. Like Division II kids, they're not getting drafted anymore. It's a different world now. Okay? So you may have the aberration, but no. So of the 4,000 Division I players who entered the portal, and only 20% of those are getting picked up. 20 to 30%. Let's split the difference and go 25%. So 25% of 4,000, that's 10%'s 400, 800, and a half of that, that's what? 1,000 kids? 1,000? Let's say 1,000 of the 4,000 got picked up off the portal by another team. Okay? That's 1,000. Of those 1,000 who the teams still want after they enter the portal, you're looking at 220, and that mixed in with all the other players, only 224 are getting drafted. Think about that. That's how small it is. And of those 224, three rounds of them maybe in the mix, maybe 4 rounds of them will actually succeed and stay in the NFL at some really good capacity in that practice squad. The numbers are low. The chances are low. Okay? So Pavia went to enter the draft. All right? Pavia enters the draft. I said, a few shows back, you can go watch it. I forget which episode it was, but I said Pavia is going to wind up in undrafted free agent. That's what's going to happen. He's going to be an undrafted free agent because there's no way he's going to get drafted at 5'9". Unless someone takes a real big chance on him, he's not going to get drafted. And he didn't get drafted. I told you it was going to happen. It's just common sense. So now we have Pavia who goes in the draft and he goes through the whole draft and doesn't get drafted. So what happens? He wants to get picked up. He wants to try to, people are saying CFL or UFL or USFL, whatever it is. And he ends up getting picked up by the Ravens. Now, the Ravens were smart for picking up Pavia. Let me explain to you why. It's a win-win for them. They have no skin in the game. They offer him an undrafted free agent contract. Now they refer to it's a 3-year deal. No, it's not. His agent said it's a 3-year deal, so it sounds good. It's not a 3-year deal. It's a year-by-year deal, if it's even that. Okay, he can easily get cut tomorrow, and it's no skin off their nose. Maybe he'll get $25,000 signing bonus or something if they negotiated that in his contract, whatever it is. Now, I don't know how much they negotiated in his contract, but he can get something, okay? But if he doesn't work out, you're going to cut him. Now, he's not better than Lamar Jackson, so that's never going to happen. And I'm sure as hell probably not better than the next backup. Could they use him as a slot? Yeah, possibly. But he's small. A slot receiver at 5'9", maybe 5'10" on a good day. What's he going to do? It's not going to happen. And then he started believing his own press. And you players have to calm down. There's a fine line between confidence and arrogance. Just because you're being paid in college does not mean you're really worth that in the real world. College is still a bubble. You're being well overpaid for what you do. Well overpaid. But the NCAA is a multi-billion-dollar organization. Right. But the schools are not. The majority of the money from the schools, okay, in the sports programs comes from football and basketball. And honestly, the majority of it comes from football. Okay, I think it's like Nebraska recently. I did a short video on this. Nebraska was like 24 million came from football and 6 million came from basketball, or vice versa, 26 and 4. So it's 30 million overall came from those two sports. That's the only teams that earn money. The rest all lost money. And those two sports, the money they earn, that would trickle down to the other sports in college. And when it trickles down to those sports, then that keeps those sports existent, solvent, so they can actually stay on campus and, compete. Well, schools are canceling sports all the time. Hell, who was it just canceled? They just canceled golf on program today. I'll talk about it in another show when I talk about the money side of things again. But they just canceled golf. We had tennis. Nebraska canceled men's and women's tennis. Men's and women's golf canceled because the lower sports aren't getting the money. Why? Because you have to pull money from the nil money. Or from the no money from the profits. So the NCAA settlement, House versus NCAA, said there's a cap. You can pay up your kids up to $20 million. Some schools are a little less. Some schools are a little bit more. And they're trying to find the money somewhere, and they're pulling it out of their freaking profits, which is now detrimental to all the other sports in college, in that school. Again, I'll go into depth on this because there's so much crap going on between TV revenue and private industry getting involved in programs. Stuff that I told you was going to freaking happen. It was going to freaking happen. That's coming up in another show. I can't talk about it here because I'll be talking for 4 hours on this. And I can't believe we talk for 4 hours. So, Pavia is here in the NFL draft, okay? Gets bypassed, undrafted free agent. All right, it looks like a little kid out there. If you watch the video, it looks like he's on the Baltimore Ravens youth football team. But here's an interesting point. his arrogance does not help him at all. It just doesn't. You got to go along to get along, okay? You're not bigger than you are right now. Shedeur Sanders the same way. You got to go along to get along. No matter how much they pump you up in college, and high school athletes, this is for you. No matter how much they pump you up in high school, no matter how much you're a legend in your own neighborhood, a hometown hero, you mean dick at the next level. You mean nothing at the next level. You are a nobody. You're the low man on the totem pole when you go to college. No matter how much they stroke you, how much the news reports about you in your local paper, how much attention you get, all that talking and pumping up on social media, it means nothing once you get to college. And in college, you have to earn your bones. And the problem you have is there's a lot of players out there who get to college, they think they should be getting stroked because they were stroked for 4 years in high school. Then they get to college and they're not getting stroked, and then their egos get hurt and they go, I'm going to leave because I'm not getting my way. It's not right. Because you guys want instant gratification. All right? That's what you want. You have a life of instant gratification. Okay? Everything with you is instantaneous. Instant movies, instant music, instant dating, whatever it is. Everything's right away. You don't have to wait and learn how to wait for stuff. And when you get to college, you're going to have to wait. And then you're going to say, I'm going to transfer. And then you screw yourself because you enter the portal, you give up your scholarship to enter the portal, and then you go in the portal and you may or may not get picked up. And in a lot of cases, you get picked up by a Division II or Division III program. Think about it. 20 to 30% of all Division I players that enter the portal, of all players total that enter the portal, all total, 20 to 30% get picked up off the portal for football. And it's less for other sports. Sometimes it's more for smaller sports. But basketball and football, kind of the same. So you got nothing. So you don't fill your head with all of how great I am, because when you have someone like Shedeur Sanders or Diego Pavia, I am the man, all this bluster on social media, talking about how great he is, goes into the NFL draft, nothing. For 7 rounds, gets nothing, gets signed by a team after not being drafted. For nothing. There's no risk for the Ravens. What do they care? It looks good for them in PR purposes because they can get Diego Pavia on their team and they could say, we give this kid a chance. The Vandy fans will be happy. The Pavia fans on social media will be happy. He's got a bit of a following on there. So let's use that to get exposure. Let him do the work for us. Shedeur Sanders, same thing. Wearing the big medallion that says legendary on it. I did a whole show on that. How having his own custom draft room, which is what Pavia did. All these hats laid out, all this crap. Like who's going to get picked at every single team on a big table with the TVs and all the bullshit. And what happens? Nothing. He goes in the 5th round. And everyone's like, he should go in the 1st round. Why? Well, look at the numbers he put up. Okay. Let's look at the numbers he put up. Let's do this. Let me compare the two. Okay, here we go. Shedeur Sanders. He put up in 2023, he threw for 3,230 yards, 27 touchdowns. Good numbers. 2024, he threw for 4,134 yards and 37 touchdowns. Very good numbers. But he was sacked 42 times. That's always been my sticking point with Sanders. Sacked 42 times. What does that tell me as a scout about Shedeur Sanders? It tells me that he stays in the pocket too long, holds on to the ball too long, can't check off on the receivers, can't read defenses, can't pick up the blitz. A lot of flags. That's what it tells me as a quarterback what his problems are. Well, what about the offensive line? The offensive line is part of it, but the offensive line, as a former Division I offensive lineman, you can only hold a block for anywhere from 3 to 6 seconds tops. That's why you have to get a quick release as a quarterback. That's why you got to check off on your receivers fast and get rid of it, because you get 3 to 6 seconds before you can. If you can hold it longer than that, kudos to you. The defensive man screwed up or you're just a stud. But for the most part, 3 to 6, maybe 3 to 5. Okay, so you got to get rid of the freaking ball. And when you're holding onto it too long, you're going to get sacked no matter how good your offensive line is. Unless you're playing dogs on the other side on defense, they're going to kill you. That's the problem I have with Shedeur Sanders, okay? Then he got all arrogant and pumped himself up. Now, it didn't help that his father pumped him up, but we'll talk about Dion soon. Now let's talk about Pavia. Diego Pavia. For Vanderbilt for 2 seasons. 2024, he threw for 2,293 yards and 20 touchdowns. And for 2005, he threw for 3,539 yards and 29 touchdowns. Good numbers. But he's also 5'9". And he's also in college. And as I just said, the numbers don't translate from college to pro. It's a totally different world. You're not cut out for the pros in all aspects because the talent level in college is so low. From high school to college, you literally have a 0.03 chance of getting drafted in the NFL. From high school to college, all the way through, starting from high school, right? You have like maybe a 3% chance, maybe from college to pro, maybe. The chances are slim. The chances for you to go in the NFL are slim. So, of course, you're going to be competing against other people in the NCAA who aren't as good because they're not going to be able to go to the NFL either. Doesn't matter how we think they are. It's how they compare to the next level. And are you going to get drafted at that next level? You can be a stud. That's just like in high school. You can be a stud in high school. Okay? But remember, if they say that 7% of athletes, it's less than that now, though they'll say 7%, it's less than that. 7% of football players go to college from high school, right? 7%. So they say. Overall, divisions 1, 2, and 3, 7%. Let's go with 7%. 7% that go, that means are you better than 93% of the other players? Yeah, but another way of looking at that is you are better than the 93% of the players who will never be able to play in college. Let's put it that way. You're not better than the best. You're better than the ones who aren't the best. Keep that in perspective when you're going to go to college. I don't care what the percentages are, or how much they pump you up, whether it's high school to college or college to pro. Keep that in perspective. But when you're getting paid in college, they're making you think that you're worth something. And now they're going to start, some states are paying people in high school, saying, yes, you can pay people no money in high school. For what? You haven't done anything yet. You haven't earned a damn thing, but you're overvalued in college. That's the problem. So you have Diego Pavia, who doesn't get drafted. This should be your wake-up call. Deion Sanders, or Shedeur Sanders, who was supposed to go first round, according to the experts, goes 5th round. Diego Pavia, who says, he'll go, doesn't even get drafted. Okay? Now, a little side note. Where was the stink about that? Where was all the stink? Where was all the uproar online about Pavia? Pavia is what, a Hispanic male, right? Where was the stink about him not getting drafted at all? I mean, Shedeur Sanders, everything was a conspiracy. The NFL is conspiring against him, and they're all stacking the deck and trying not to draft him, and they hate him because it's racial and whatever it is. Where's that for Pavia? Why is it different for him? Well, Sanders was picked to go in the first round. Yeah, just because you're projected to go in the first round doesn't mean you're going to go in the first round. It's not the first time a first rounder has fallen to a later round. It's happened before. Okay? They see a flaw. And honestly, Mel Kiper, the guy who does his projections, and all these other clowns that do their projections, they don't know what the frick they're talking about. They're sports writers. They just guess. They have absolutely no clue what the pros are thinking, what the pro scouts are going to do. They don't. And the pro scouts love that. They love the fact that these guys don't have a clue because it's their game. If they knew what the pro scouts were going to do, then the pro scouts aren't doing their job because they're not keeping it a secret. And how many times are they blindsided by something that happens in the NFL draft? All the time. Kuiper's an idiot. He's getting paid for being a moron forever. He's never right. He's never right. So it's an absolute disgrace. But they projected Shedeur Sanders errantly. Okay? But then, again, where is the conspiracy theories on Pavia? Where is it? I mean, the numbers are pretty close in terms of what they did. Okay, 4,000 yards versus 3,000 and change? 3,500 yards? Numbers are close. 37 touchdowns to 29 touchdowns? Very close. But here's the difference. Why was Sanders drafted in the 5th round? He's 6'2". He's 6'2". And the name, Sanders. Better player? Yeah, he's 6'2". Sacked 42 times? Yeah. But he's 6'2". Pavia's 5'9". Makes a big difference. Especially when you got to throw over a... Who was it? Who was it the Eagles that drafted a defensive lineman who was like 6'9", or offensive lineman who was 6'9"? So you got to throw over a 6'9" lineman. Think about that. If you're 5'9", you got a whole foot to go over that guy's head. You have a whole head, basically, of space to throw over that guy's head. So, it's not about race, as some try to make it. It's about what you can do for a team. It's your value. And you're overvalued in college. You are. Some have some value, but you don't know what your value is going to be until you actually get to the NFL. You're being paid on potential when you're drafted. Just like you're being paid on potential in college. The only time you're ever not paid on potential is when you've proven yourself after a couple of years. And then they say, okay, you got value. But if you're a freshman coming into college and they're paying you $1 million, and you have parents that do that now. Parents that do that now, they go, well, this is what we're looking for my son. I want to get paid at least $1.5 million for him to even come to your school. Well, coaches say, well, I don't like that. And it turns us off. Yeah, but you created this, coaches. You created this. You saw the opportunity, you grabbed onto it, and you freaking used it. And you ran with it. You said, it's going to benefit me because I could be lazy and take the easy way out. Look, for lack of a better explanation, college coaches, some would say lazy, some would say practical, okay? Or efficient. I think it's a little bit of both. If you can get a win by taking a shortcut, and you're a college coach, and your future, your family, your job, your career, all lie on your wins and losses, you're going to take the shortcut to get your win. And you're going to get those players you need. Hell, man, guys are doing it in freaking high school here in New Jersey. They've been doing it for years. They've been doing it for years. You have coaches who have cheated in New Jersey, North and South, and some in PA, for years. Like Timber Creek High School in, Ariel, New Jersey? Timber Creek High School? Their coaches cheated for years in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, years. They would recruit kids from out of the district, find them addresses. Yeah, I have the inside skinny on that stuff. They'd find them addresses, okay? They would go to the school and they'd stack the deck with all these Division I prospects who were developed at other schools. And they'd bring them in to make themselves look good and make the programs look good. And it would do a couple things. They'd say, well, look, we're getting these kids deals. The kids are going to get the deals anyway. You're just putting them all in the one pond so the coaches can be lazier and go to one school and find everybody. You're doing it to make yourself look good. Same as college coaches. You're bringing those kids, if you're a coach who's cheating in high school and bringing kids from out of district, you're not a private school. Okay, you're a public school and you're recruiting kids from out of district and finding them addresses and breaking the rules. Okay, and then putting them on your team to make yourself a winner. You're doing it to make yourself look good because you're trying to parlay that into opportunities for yourself in the future. I mean, be honest, admit it. College coaches are doing it all the time. It's still wrong, but in college, it's a little different because it's more of a business. In high school, it's not supposed to be like that. In high school, it's supposed to be development of the athletes. The true character of a coach in high school is to take a program, and this is the coolest thing, is you take a program that's a losing program, okay? And you come in and you change the culture. I've seen it countless times, and it's awesome. A coach comes in and he has to develop these young players. And you see it because you come in there and you pick up these seniors who already have the bad habits and juniors who have bad habits from the previous coach, right? Then you have freshmen and sophomores sophomores are still transitional. Freshmen are green as green, okay? So your freshman class comes in, your green sophomores, and then your bad culture seniors who are already locked into the bad culture and juniors who are mostly there. You cycle through those seniors. They go through, you try to teach them your program, teach them your culture. They don't quite get it. Then you don't have a good season. They move on. Now your juniors are getting more of it, and they've seen what not listening does. So then they carry that forward and try to be leaders as seniors, but you still have that tarnish of the previous coach on there, right? The previous organization. Now you have your sophomores who were greener and more easily able to develop, and you develop them in JV. Now they're coming to varsity. Now you have them. So now your sophomores are now your seniors, and your freshmen are your juniors. Now you have your culture. And then the other guys down the road, your juniors who are now the freshmen, or were the freshmen, they're full straight on under your tutelage from the beginning. So now you have 3 years behind you learning your culture. That's how you develop players. That's how you do it. You teach them, you develop them, you get them better, then you see them succeed. Do you need to have everybody get a deal at school? Not everyone's going to get a deal. But if you can get a kid to get a deal and be on a losing program or a program that's developing, that's huge. That's really a lot of what I do when I'm doing recruiting. I work with athletes. I don't have to work with the best ones because they're going to be found. I can work with athletes who are unknowns or are flying kind of under the radar, and I get them exposure so they get seen and they get those deals. I've had countless schools who coaches didn't even know who those kids were, and I marketed them and they got deals. It works out great. That's what it's all about, okay? That's what it's all about, developing those players. In college, you're supposed to be developing these players too to get to the next level. But now it's become a business. So your college coaches, they just want to have the win. They want to win now because they're getting paid millions of dollars too, all right, as coaches. So they don't want to lose that cash cow. So they're going to get as many wins as possible. So coaches, you're culpable in this. Now you're bitching about it. We got players who transfer too much, ask for too much money. You started it, or you enabled it. It was started by the legislators who created the damn thing. It was pushed through by the damn lawyers and force-fed through that and embraced by the players who are going to make that money, and then enabled by the coaches who grabbed it and said, hey, man, I can take advantage of it. Well, if it's the system, I may as well just do it. How about you say, no, let's try it another way and fight back? But they didn't do that because other coaches who don't have that ethics, don't have those ethics, right? They're going to take those players anyway. Well, if they're going to take them, I'm going to lose them, so I may as well take them if they're going to take them. That's what happens. That's what causes this downward spiral, and it trickles up to the NFL. You have players who just don't care, who will rather stay in college and get as many years of eligibility as they possibly can. And if they get paid in college, why go to the pros? Why go? If I'm making more money staying in college, why go and risk losing money in the 4th through 7th rounds, as that one lawyer was talking about? Why lose that? What that scout was talking about? Why lose money in the 4th and 7th rounds if I could just stay in college? Well, there's a little thing called the 5-for-5 plan. Now, I addressed this briefly in the White House Roundtable show. Okay, episode, what was that? 20, what was that? 22, 23, 24, something like that. The President Trump proposed, he had this roundtable, which really went nowhere. And he came up and said, I'm doing and he had talked with Saban and some other guys behind the scenes. And he said, I'm going to propose an executive order, and it gives you 5 years of eligibility straight. And then they say you can transfer one time. Basically, these are the things he put together in his executive order. Okay. It's not set in stone, but what it does is it gives you a blueprint that if it becomes legislation, if the court rules out certain aspects of the executive order, they rewrite that, which then becomes the blueprint for an actual legislation, which can be implemented nationwide. However, the NCAA, in conjunction with that, said, hey, we're going to propose a 5-for-5 plan. They just released that last week, okay? 5-for-5. What is that? You get 5 years of eligibility. It starts either when you graduate high school or when you turn 19 years old. That's when it starts. Now, it's not set in stone yet. They're going to have, I think, a meeting on the 22nd of May. And then from there, it's going to go through different iterations and feedback and whatever and input. And then they're going to find out what the rules are, okay? So automatically, the lawyers are feasting. It's going to be lawsuits. Blah, blah, blah. We're going to sue. There's going to be lawsuits. Well, yeah, that's okay. That's going to happen because, first off, you had the people crying about the class of 2020. Was it 2026? Oh, class of 2026 is screwed again, man. They had to come in after COVID. They came in 22, right? So they had to come in after COVID. Those guys with the extra year of eligibility because they got that COVID eligibility, so they lost time to play then, and now they're going to lose a year. Yeah, well, that's the breaks, guys. That's just how it is. Oh, you can't have everything you want. In the real world, you're not going to have everything. You're not going to get everything you want. You're just not. You have to make those tough choices. And that's just the way it is. The ball sometimes falls in your way and sometimes it doesn't fall your way. All right. But then there's those who are like, well, what about a player there's a lot of what ifs. What if a player decides to reclass and repeat their junior year to enter a different year of recruiting class, right? So if they're a class of this year, say they're a class of 20, going to be a class of 26, they decide to reclass and repeat their junior year in 26 and then enter the class of 27. What if that happens? Okay, what if? Well, most of your seniors are 17 years old. I was an older senior, okay, because I moved from Pennsylvania to New Jersey when I was about 3. So I turned 18 in October. So beginning of my senior year, I was 18, okay? The clock doesn't start for me until I graduate. So I turned 19 in October, and I was at the prep school for West Point when I was 19 years old. Fine. That was my first year of eligibility anyway, okay? So say you're a 17-year-old kid, and you go back, you're going to be a senior at 17, so you decide to become a junior again at 17. Now you're 18 years old as a senior. You're fine because your clock doesn't start ticking until after you graduate from high school. But what if you're an older senior like I was, and you're 18 years old, and you decide to reclass, and you go back to your junior year at 18, and then you turn 19 your senior year? What happens then? That's one of the questions. Well, honestly, people are going to say, waivers. And no, because then everyone's going to do it. If you give a waiver to one guy for reclassing, then everybody's going to reclass. Here's what should happen. You should think twice about reclassing. If you're an older senior and you're going to turn 19 in your senior year when you reclass, which means your clock starts to tick for eligibility, you want to make the choice and rethink it. Because life is full of choices. That's what adults do. But they're only kids. No, you're 18 years old, you're an adult. Okay? I like to say that Alexander the Great ruled a kingdom at 13 years old. Beatles were making hit records at 19. By the time before they even turned 30, they had massive careers and made millions. You're old enough to make the choice. And you got to think about it. That's because that's what life is full of. I had my choices. Could I have stayed in the Army? I got out of the Army in 2001. I was done my service. I was like, I'm good. Do I stay in 2001 and have sustainability, comfort, a good, reliable job for the next 20 some odd years plus a pension after that? Or do I go out in the real world and get a real job and take the chance? I could get laid off. Things could happen, whatever it is, economies, ups and downs. I got to make that decision. That's life. I started my own little business. I started Pro Dynamix. Do I stay in the corporate sector and work and have, a comfortable job and know that I'm getting a salary, but also be under the thumb of some boss and actually know that I could get laid off at any time? Or do I start my own business and then realize I'm going to be working my ass off, and it might be tough for money sometimes, but it's also worth it? Do I do that? Those are the choices we all have to make in life. So if you're going to be a high school student and you're going to turn 19 in your new senior year, you're thinking, well, if I'm going to turn 19 when I graduate, then if I reclass, I'll be 19 when I'm a senior, and the clock starts to tick. Maybe I don't reclass. There'll be waivers for medical things and whatnot, but they got to be careful with the medical waivers because Trinidad Chambliss, he got his extra year of eligibility because he had tonsillitis. It wasn't a tonsillectomy. He didn't have his tonsils out. He had tonsillitis. He had a sore freaking throat. But he got his extra year of eligibility because he finally found that judge, as I just mentioned, who saw it his way and it was an Ole Miss grad and decided to give him his ruling. So we got another year of eligibility. Well, that's all going to go bye-bye, you see. So for all you players in this 5-year deal, because it's going to be a 5-year deal, lawyers are going to bitch and bitch and bitch because the lawyers don't like it. Why don't the lawyers like a 5-year deal? Why don't they like that? 5 years straight. You get 5 years of eligibility and that's it. They don't like it because they can't sue to get more years. Because that limits how much money they can make. Instead of having a kid going to school for 7 years, like Bowman, from who was that? Oregon or something? Went to school for 7 years. For guys who are going to school for 9 years, they don't have that. So they can make that money off of those guys who stay longer. They don't have it when the kid's staying for 5. That's it. So they have to maximize their money, and they can't do any lawsuits when the rule is set in stone. This is what lawyers are always fighting with. They'll talk online about how they give a crap. They give a crap about the money, guys. They didn't care. Again, they didn't care about college students before the college students meant they can make money off of them. So 5 years, it's fine. It's time to grow up and get out of school anyway. You're in school to be a student. And there are literally players in college. Where did I see that? There are players in college. The person posted this online. This person here, what's his, there's reporting for the Baltimore Sun, okay? His name is Taylor Lyons. Posted this today. Do college athletes still go to class? Here's what I learned about how Maryland's student athletes view academics today. I'm going to summarize it because it's very long. Basically, they're getting paid to play sport. So they say, why should I even go to class? They're going to major in something easy like sociology or communications. And then they're going to skirt through on that. They're not going to go to class. D is for diploma as far as they're concerned, because they feel that they're being paid to go to school to play sports. That's how it is. So maybe you should focus on your actual diploma. And a good way of doing this, and my proposal to the NCAA, and I've stood by this all along, if you are getting paid no money over a specific dollar amount, you shouldn't get scholarship money too. If your nil money allows you to pay for your tuition in full, then pay your own way. Leave the scholarship money, free it up for those who don't get a lot of no money to augment or get no money, so you can augment what they're getting. So it gives them a reason to go to school, right? You're giving them an education, which is what it's all about. And when you're paying for your own education, you bet your ass you're going to go to class. And if you're paying for your own education and a percentage of your salary, a percentage of your money comes out of your money you're earning through nil money, your lawyers and nil agents are not going to get as much money out of you because you got to pay that into your tuition. That's what should happen. But that's where we are. Okay, that's where we are. Where there's so many. My head goes in so many different directions with this, and it's still there's. I could go through the list of all the proposed rules. It's nothing's good until it's set in stone. All right, so I'm just going to talk about what could happen. And I'm not going to talk about all the little variations on this, but I know the basics of it. I've been right from the beginning on this, okay? This is where it's going. So you need to focus on the fact that you got 5 years in school, and if you have 5 years in school, then you know your clock is going to end after that 5th year. And that's going to make players more inclined to enter the NFL draft. It's a win-win on both sides. Either you're going to hit your 5th year and you're going to graduate and move on and get an actual job, or you're going to enter your 5th year, do your 5th year, get your nil money, and then enter the draft because you know it's all going away. That's how it is. And maybe that'll help improve the NFL draft in the future. What do you think? I'm curious to know what you think about. Like and follow. Let me know. Make some comments, answer some questions. You think I'm full of it? Talk to me. My opinion is my opinion, but I'm more than willing to discuss. So until next time, we'll talk more about this and other aspects of the revenue sharing and TV revenues and a lot of the great stuff coming up on the hopper. Until next time, I'm Matt Roberts. Thank you for watching the ProZone Show. Know your goal.